Hi BookTube, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie and I'm here to do a review of The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This is I think this is kind of more of a literary horror novel than a traditional horror. So the plot of the story starts out with 10 years ago. This group of friends, Lewis, Gabriel, Ricky, and Cassidy of, I think it's the Blackfeet tribe. I think. I don't know, it'll take too long to find it. The Blackfeet tribe, they decided 10 years ago they wanted to have a more classical traditional meat for Thanksgiving. Because actually I learned from Jennifer Brooks' video on this that the turkey they didn't eat turkey on Thanksgiving. Like the first Thanksgiving they probably would not be eating turkey. There were wild turkey, but they would either eat fish or in this case elk. They ended up going hunting down in this herd of elk, which included a mother elk that was pregnant. And I believe Lewis ends up taking her calf from her. So 10 years later, like I said, the she-elk ends up supposedly haunting them in the form of a humanoid form and wanting revenge. So the story is told in multiple parts. We spend, the first part is kind of Ricky and Lewis's story, what's going on with them. And we get Ricky is we don't really get to know his character. He's killed off rather quickly. We introduce his character and he's at a local bar and he ends up getting beaten the shit out of him by a bunch of cowboys. Now, I don't remember how he died after that, if he killed himself or they killed him. I gotta admit, I don't remember. But then we spend most of the first part with Lewis, and he is married to a white woman. And there's this undertone of that she might not, because she's a white woman, would she understand and appreciate his culture and his heritage. There's even a moment where one of the guys is like, oh, is she complaining again because what you're doing is you're being too Indian or something along those lines. So it's very interesting, the idea of, when you interracial marriages and the idea of does the whole fact that you are different in some ways, can you get past that? Can you, does it really matter to you or not? And then there's another part of the plot of his story is that he is this pretty insistent Shaney who he tells the story with the elk, what happened with the elk 10 years ago, because he's the first one to start to think that this elk-headed woman is following them and stalking them and trying to kill him. He's he's very paranoid, and I think he's the most sensitive, and he's the heart of this group of guys, and he ends up he tells Shaney his story and everything, and they bond over it, and so his wife is like, you told her, why didn't you tell me? And he ends up telling her the rest of it, because he says that he didn't tell Shaney everything, so he tells almost the rest of it, because there's one other last part that he leaves out to both of them, and he ends up actually accusing both of them, thinking both of them are the she-elk in human form, that they're going after him and trying to kill him. And when he confronts Shaney about it, there's this moment, his proof that she could be the elk-headed woman after all is he had lent her some books to read, because that's another thing they kind of bond over. They both like reading, and he references one of the books and she doesn't really respond, and that's to him, that's proof. And then there's one other thing that I do not remember, what it was that made him believe, oh, you have to be, because you can't remember this. How could you forget this? I let you read these books, so clearly you didn't read these books. And I remember at the time, because in that first part, I didn't know if the horror was going to be a literal monster or a metaphorical monster. I didn't know if it was real, or maybe what they were going to do was the mental health kind of story where maybe Lewis, you can't trust his judgment, and maybe this is all in his head. So at the time, I even thought that some of his proof was a little silly, like, because you're not going to always remember, in my opinion, you might not remember everything about a book, and so I just assume I gotta admit, I was thinking, well, maybe this is gonna be in his head, like, maybe he's crazy. And he does, that whole section, it shows him slowly going crazy, slowly going mad, and then he ends up, getting, you don't find out right away, but you find out what happens to him when we start talking about Gabriel and Cassidy's story. Now, I gotta admit, I don't remember a lot about Cassidy's story. He was a guy, by the way. But Gabriel Cross Guns, he has, in his story, he's an alcoholic. He's divorced from his wife, who has been remarried for a while. They have a daughter, Denera, who's on the basketball team. And we kind of get a glimpse of racism. We get a little bit of the racism with her, because there's two moments when she's in school. One is where a teacher talks about how Indians' hair is so long that you can't see their faces, and it's like, are you saying Indians have no faces? That's how she kind of responds to it. And then, we learn that Indians, that they did have long hair, but they would, when they were younger, like boys, when they were younger, they would, like, braid it to get it out of their face, to keep it out of their face, and for other reasons, I believe. And the other instance is when she's given an assignment where she's supposed to talk about what she wants to do when she grows up, the career she wants. And I don't remember if she wanted to be a basketball player or something else. But then her teacher gives her a B- and says something along the lines of, you shouldn't pick a profession that's more of your heritage or more your, Native American or Indian culture. Why don't you do that? And it's like, oh, so the only job she can do are this kind of job. She can't be like a basketball star or whatever she wanted to do. All because, supposedly, because she's Indian and or Native American. And so you see a lot of you see some casual racism in the story, periodically. And so we see, like, we spend most of our time with Gabriel and her and the rest of the story. And I also like how it's not as strong of a plot point, but we do get to explore a lot more of the Native American / Indian culture. Like, we get the whole sweat lodge stuff. Like, there's Gabriel and Cassie are helping this young boy who's coming of age, and I think he's starting to act rebellion, doing what a lot of teenagers do, which is act out, potentially get into drugs, have bad groups of friends, stuff like that. And that a lot of that happens to a lot of teenagers, can potentially happen to a lot of teenagers. And so the way they help is having you sit in a sweat lodge for long hours and, release all the negative energy, I guess. And I don't understand how it works, but I'm definitely interested to learn more, read more story, more fiction, maybe even read a little bit of nonfiction about this culture and learn more and understand it more. Because I feel like we didn't get enough in this story. Now, I know there's also Rebecca Roanhorse's fantasy series. I believe that's also based on Native American lore. And it is interesting, which, by the way, it's interesting that when they're in the sweat lodge, the young man is like, politically correct, it's Native Americans, and then, I don't know if it was Gabriel or Cassidy had said, well, actually, we call ourselves Indians. So I thought that was interesting as well, that they call them, and It's funny, I'm saying interesting. I was just made aware that I say interest. I am one of those people who says the word interesting a lot in my reviews. And I just watched a video where from Gunpowder and Fiction and Plot where it's connected to the ratings or review tag I did the other day, where someone talked about their reviews and how they notice people use the word interesting a lot. And that's kind of a meaningless word. Can potentially be a meaningless word unless you back it up. And I don't know if I'm very good at backing that up. But I want to learn more about this. I'm very intrigued by this culture. It's a culture I don't know a lot about, but I've always been fascinated by it. Fascinated by the idea of what, their beliefs and their culture, especially because we get hints of it and teases of it in movies sometimes. And unfortunately, sometimes it can be a little rude and racism, like Peter Pan's story, the Peter Pan movie, for instance. There's a lot of aspects about it that are like very inappropriate and inaccurate, and just so. And I remember in the sequel that they made some years ago with Wendy's daughter, they don't include the Native Americans or the Indians in the story. That's their way of solving the problem. Let's not deal with that problem just yet. Let's not even include them in the story. But anyway, so I like I said, I like how they deal, how mixed with this horror, they deal with the Native American culture in ways, and they also deal with the sad casual racism. This is another group that deals with that a lot. Another group of people, and it's sad and it's wrong, and I think it comes from a mixture of, it can come from either a place of ignorance and you're too lazy to take the time to try to understand, because also because you're just so used to it, to being, casually racist. And then it comes from a place of spite and hatred, just downright hatred, which I personally don't understand. But, yeah, so I definitely want to read more. I definitely want to read, like I said, I want to check out Rebecca Roanhorse's series. Now, I don't know if there's another one that I'm reading about recently, or reminded of, I should say, because it came out years ago. I cannot remember what it's called, where someone talked about it, and I don't know if that has to do with her either. If that has to do with her at all. But, yeah, I definitely want to read more. And then there's a new one, I think it's called, The Night Watch, or something like that, where a woman was inspired by her grandfather's past. And it was the story is based on what happened to him and his experiences. And I gotta admit, I don't remember what the plot is about, but like I said, I think it's called The Night Watch or something along those lines. Similar title to now I can't even think about that. This is part of the problem when I stumble, is when I'm trying to think of something like another title or something, and then I can't remember it. But I definitely there's also Graham Jones also includes the she-elk's perspective, which I think adds a lot to the story. It's sprinkled throughout the novel. We get her point of view and realize that, yeah, she's technically a literal animal, but she's also a mother that got killed and lost her baby. And I think a lot of mothers could probably relate. Let's hope they can't relate to the exact situation, but can relate to the feelings of wanting to protect your children and I think any human mother would feel the same way and want revenge and get very emotional about the situation and want to punish those responsible for the death of her child, or at least punish someone. So I really appreciate how we got her perspective, this, little bits and pieces, and we see her point of view and why we kind of understand and sympathize with her a lot more, because we see her perspective on the situation. Now I gotta admit, it didn't convert me to vegetarianism. I still like eating meat, But yeah, it's a sad story, but also a good story that's heartbreaking, and there's funny moments, and it talks about the culture, the Native American culture, explores that a little bit. I feel like it didn't explore it enough, but this is a horror novel. The main focus is these guys being hunted down by the she-elk, and if she's real or not. But I definitely think this is a great horror, more literary horror novel that I think you should check out. And so that is my review of The Only Good Indians. If if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Click subscribe if you have not already. Click the bell notification below to see when I post new videos. And please share if you've read this book and what you thought about it in the comments below. And I will talk to you all later. Alright, bye!